pronunciation of your name?
If you want to be super Dominican with it, that's always fun. Montañez.
Montañez. I was gonna say, I was like, it's like Vega Montañez. I'm Dominican, so I'm gonna go chill Dominican. Vega Montañez is an award-winning film producer, writer, and director from Providence, Rhode Island. He shapes transformative narratives in cinema. Over the past 3 years, he contributed to 9 feature films, including the acclaimed The Hurt We Share, earning over 12 international awards with securing distribution with Dame Dash Studios. With upcoming releases including Beyond Detention, A Quiet Road, Nico, and the recently wrapped The Burden of 9 Lives. Vega's momentum is set to continue through 2025. Vega, what up, Vega? Thank you so much for joining us.
That was fun. It was interesting to watch you read that.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, come on, let's do it. Okay, so how's it going? How's 2025 treating you?
2025 is off to a crazy... Actually, I learned something really interesting yesterday that I'm going to start applying to my life for real. So over the past, decade or so, I've always felt like January sucked, right? January just never goes well. And so I don't remember who it was that said it, but ultimately somebody was like, yeah, it's bad luck to have Christmas decor out after Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, that explains everything, bro. Because I don't put away my Christmas tree till mid-January ever. Just I don't even know why. Sometimes it just doesn't occur to me to put it away. That explains why January sucks.
My parents, they take it down the week after New Year's or the week of New Year's, right?
That's wild.
Some people take it down right after Christmas.
Yeah, so I'm banking on 2026 being better. I'm going to try that next year.
I don't
take the
put them
Christmas
up.
tree down the day after Christmas. This is over.
I don't put mine up, so I don't think it applies to me. But we were talking before you came on that you're taking, let's backtrack here. I don't want to talk about the break just yet, but I want to ask you, you've contributed to 9 feature films. You have a background in music, we were discussing. What got you into making films?
The simple answer is I got tired of music being a solo sport. Right, so it got to a place I'm a very social person. I love talking to people. I love working with people. I love meeting people. And in music, it's the real the unspoken truth of it is every single person you meet as a musician is your direct competition, right? It's unlikely that I meet another rapper, no matter how cool they are, that we're gonna work on stuff together because it just doesn't really. It's not conducive to how music is done, right? So, collaborative efforts in music take a lot of work. I don't think people appreciate the not as much nowadays because making music's a lot easier. But back in the days, features were an extensive amount of work. That was not an easy thing to pull off. So, I started getting more connected with some of the actors and film people that I had met throughout my music time. And one of them, Brian Fernandez, asked me to write a feature for him to star in. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds fun. I love writing. Let's try it. So I wrote a feature, ran around trying to get funding, didn't work out. Then I was like, I'm not making movies ever. I'm just going to stick to music. This is
What year was this?
That was 2015, 2016, somewhere around that time.
We're going almost 10 years now, the start of you transitioning, so to speak.
That's kind of the start of it, right? But then it just came to a complete stop because I was like, you guys are nuts. I'm not running around begging anybody to give me money to try to make something. That doesn't actually make sense.
You got to shop your movie. You got to get the funding.
What a crazy business model, right? So I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I don't want to be a part of this. So I backed away completely. A little bit before the end of 2019, I was planning a tour and that got canceled. But we were able to keep deposits, the artists involved or whatever. So I was like, all right, well, I got a little extra money. Let's make The Hurt We Share. I reached out to a couple friends who were actors and, we just made the movie happen. But at that point, I was just I love making movies. I like the camaraderie, the team effort. The community, the real union that exists, that still exists in music, but it exists in particular types of music. If you're an instrumentalist, you play any instruments, you tend to find that community very easily, right? But songwriters don't find it as easily. So that's kind of how we ended up in film, and part of it was genuinely speaking, and hopefully in the most respectful way possible. But I was just the way you guys are all explaining to me that you have to go through a process to make movies doesn't seem to make sense. So I'm going to try it my way. And if it doesn't work, cool. You guys were all right. And I look like an idiot.
Right.
And that's it. But it's worked 4 times. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Let's unpack that. So coming from the music industry and also now working in the film industry, 2 cutthroat industries that are, let's face it, very exploitative. How have you found success? What methods have you utilized for the 4 features or 4 projects that have found success?
A lot of the stuff that I do, I emulate music for, right? So, like, one of the big examples I give to people when I'm having a more contentious debate about this, it's like, yo, as an artist, right? If you make a song today, you go outside, you tell somebody, hey, listen to my song. And if they say no, you move on to the next person. And that's the whole thing, right? Like, that's it. There's no festival, there's no conglomerate, there's no gathering where you just show up and all the labels are like, we're looking to pick up a couple, yeah, show us your best work. Like, none of that exists. It's either you make it for what you believe is going to be good quality and you love it yourself and then you go out and share it, or you don't make it. And that's it, right? Like, funding wise, right? You either figure out how you're going to get your money to record your album, and a lot of, again, technology wise, a lot easier now, but you figure it all out, go record, and you figure out all these different increments down to like being able to print your own CDs and hand them out to people, right? Where it's just a culture that's understood. Like, you have to grind to make things happen.
Right.
That culture doesn't really exist in the same way in film. So when I came into film, I was like, okay, how do you guys do this? And it was like, oh, first you got to write your script and then shop it around. Maybe somebody will be interested in getting it made. All right, that's a fair position, but like, what if I'm interested in getting it made and I just want to like make the movie? Like, what's the next step?
Right.
Like, oh, okay, well, if you can figure out how to shoot it, you go get a team to shoot it. I was like, all right, cool. And everything just kind of flowed very seamlessly, and all of the barriers were like, you realize if you just take this barrier away, there's nothing stopping you
What's
from
the
making
barrier?
the movie. Right? In the first case is the barrier finding someone who likes your script enough to want to make it. Yeah. Or you could work a 9 to 5 for a year.
That's what indie filmmakers do.
Take a week off once a year.
1 to 2, yeah.
Save some money, budget out and I think that the business element of it, right? Like the understanding how to manage money and budget yourself for business is very different than for personal. Right. And so people who don't understand that difference and they've never explored the business side, they think they're getting it right, but you're not actually budgeting for all of the things you need to account for to make things happen. Again, something that in the music space, booking my own tours and managing all that, like, I get a great outlook on that, right? So when we talk about ways that I fund films that is different than others, I use a lot of local business and small business partners, right? Like, hey, just like when I was going on tour, give me some money, throw your logo, I'm going to be traveling the country, this many people are going to see the show, are you interested, right? Now I have way more leverage. Hey, this movie's just going to be out for people to watch whenever they feel like it anywhere in the world. It doesn't even, like, I'm not even giving you a list of cities I'm going to. Like, you can literally be anywhere in the world. You want to get involved and make your brand bigger, right? And we start funding things like that.
Let's be partners. This is business.
Right, let's work together. Let's get this going, right? And I think another piece of that is, like, because I don't come from the traditional film space, I also don't operate under the traditional expected mandates of what film should cost.
Which would be?
So, like, I'm not opposed to, but I think there needs to be more conversation around negotiating pay rates, right? Because, I'm gonna get some slack for this one.
No, let's go.
Because you can't operate your pay rate at industry standard if you're not in the industry as your operating standard, right? So, like, if you're not actively working on Hollywood films where people are working to these day rates that we're talking about on multi-million-dollar budgets where a DP is getting paid $1,500 a day,
Right.
if that's not your norm, how are you expecting that from the indies, right? Or if that's not your norm, even if we're like, let's take everybody else out of the equation. If that's not your norm, how are you expecting to compete with the people who that is their norm and that's what they're asking? Right, because that's what I try to. Right, that's what I try to educate people on. Like, if you're an indie person and you DPs are the first thing on my mind right now. There's no one. I use one specific DP, so I never have this problem.
Oh, okay.
But it's just something I see online all the time. So, like, if you're a DP and someone's looking for a DP, and you say my rate's $950 a day, you just opened up a world of competition. Do you have the portfolio to compete with those people? Right? Because if I go and I start looking at other people that are charging $950 a day, I see someone's made commercials for Nike.
Well, let's see.
I see shorts produced for Paramount.
What if I do? What if I'm a member of IATSE 600? I have a Sony FX9, full lens kit, even some lighting kit. I have a portfolio. I've shot 2 films that have premiered at Telluride, TIFF.
This is the part where this message goes out to the filmmaker now. As a producer, sometimes you're not ready. And that's just what that means. Like if you meet someone who does have the credentials and matches up to the rate that they're asking for, you're being kind of crazy to ask them to lower their rate. Like if they didn't offer it, you're being a little bit extra. You know what I'm saying? But if they're willing to negotiate because they like your script or because of those ancillary things that we count on as opposed to just treating as extra benefits, right? Like then you have a much better conversation and negotiation. But you can't go to a complete stranger because they shot an episode of Walking Dead and be like, I love that and I'm making a zombie movie. You're going to be great for it. Work with me. We're going to be like, that's not how that works.
Or posting on like Facebook group pages like, I have this script. It's amazing. And here's what I'm offering. It's like, well, have you seen, I want to ask, the Oscars are coming up soon.
I'm not good at this part.
No, it's fine. There's a movie that my co-host and I we saw. We each loved it. It's called Honora. It's by Sean Baker. Budget was $6 million. $6 million. You know, it's a lot of money, but compared to some of the other Oscar nominations, very low budget. So I say that to ask this: your writing process, going now 9-10 years ago. What was that process to make a feature? Because we're independent filmmakers. $6 million, a lot to us, to Hollywood, tiny budget. So what's your process for making this script that is basically the business model of the film? Like, hey, we're going to write this in a certain way that will be made. You know, so what's your process for writing? Not a short, a feature.
So first, I'm going to change something you said real quick. Your script is not the business model.
Ooh, we
it's
disagree.
the product.
Okay, go ahead.
Right? That's ultimately what you're going to sell. The business model is everything you do around the product to make it, right? So like if you're someone who uses Kickstarter, right? Your business model is community grassroots fundraising. Your product is the film you're making, right? So like those things are very different. I think that's important for the filmmakers to understand because you can have an amazing film, right? But it might not be a good product, which gives it a hard business. It makes it hard to make a business model around, right? One example I saw recently, I don't know anything about this guy, which is part of the problem, right? There's some musician from like Britain who recently did a biopic about him where he was like as a goat as opposed to a person. Like it was just a lot of weird stuff, right? And it's like if you sit with this script, you can love the script emotionally from a creative standpoint, right? But as a business product, how do we sell this?
I agree with you.
Because you have to think about that. Unless you want filmmaking to be a hobby. If you want filmmaking to be a hobby, I'm not the person to be listening to.
As someone who runs a business who's completed a feature recently, I agree with you on that standpoint. However, I will double down on my original point. The script is the product, and it is also the business, because your script will have everything set in motion for you, depending on how you construct that. Are we shooting this in one location or many locations? Are we shooting this in the day? Are we shooting this in the night? How we make this film will set everything in motion. It's contingent upon the script. Everything starts with the script. And
I can make those decisions before you write the script.
You could, however, ultimately, the product will be the main thing that sets everything in motion. So how am I going to get my ROI? That product, the script, it has to sell. And how am I going to get that sold? Let's say you say, oh, here's your guardrail, Gregory, $20,000. Okay, $20,000. It's not a lot of money. But what I can do, I can treat it like a stage play. Take 12 people to one house, and they chop up a few kids. That's a horror movie. I can make that for $20,000. If you tell me to make a certain type of product, action, comedy, drama, $20,000, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can't. But that script, it starts there. From that script, we can determine what the trailer's got to be. We can determine who the cast is going to be. Are they going to be A-list talent for one day or not? Which key locations, which businesses can be involved, which we can then cut in as partners later. I think that everything starts, from my opinion, everything starts with the script, because that's how you can base, eventually, your strategic plan or your business plan.
And that was beautiful, but that's how creatives think, and that's the problem, right? Because
creatives and then bringing in the business model.
And that's the issue, right? If you think about everything you described from the script that you say is important, what part of that can't I make the decision around before you write the script?
What part of that can't you make a decision?
I can decide who I want. I can decide who I want to act in the movie before you write the script. I can decide where we shoot before you write the script. I can decide how it's distributed before we write the script. Everything about the business can be decided before anything creative gets involved. That's why the script is just a product.
The studios
If you're making
would agree with you.
T-shirts, right? If you're making T-shirts, the studios agree 100%. That's why everything happens, right?
They view us as cheap labor.
No, they don't. They view films as products.
But cheap commodities.
No, just products. The cheaper I can make a product, the better. But the goal is to make a product that sells. If I can make it for cheap, fantastic. But I just want to make a product that sells.
The reason why the studios view us as products or cheap commodities is if we're willing to write the script, develop the business plan, do all of that work, and then the studio's like, "Oh, you've done that. Great. And you took it all the way to Sundance? Now we'll come in. You did all of the work for us. We didn't have to come in at the beginning. We took zero risk. You took all the risk."
And that is the result we get when we start with the script as the business model. You understand? Because if you start with the script, all you're doing is creating. You can't get mad at the person with money showing up when you're done creating and going, "That's pretty cool. Can I buy it off you and sell it?"
I would not get mad if somebody saying they want to invest. All I'm saying is if you say, and we'll now get into you taking a step back from filmmaking, because I want to get into that. I love it when we had somebody on earlier, he said, "I'm taking a step back to focus on the screenwriting because everything, again, starts with that script. If I decide not to make it, I can sell that script. If I decide to make it, based on that script, it'll affect the business model in the sense of how much am I going to spend and how much do I anticipate."
But that's what I'm saying. They're all reactionary. Film is the only, or not film, art is the only form of business that does business reactionary.
I agree with you there.
Right? Like you can't react to make a business. You can't make something from scratch in reaction to stuff.
Unless that stock person in 1929 that jumped out of a building. Which now we're approaching 1929 again. If you're into politics, I'm looking at Max.
Yeah, if you're
Republicans
politics, you
control
get
everything.
Right. So if you start with your business model, right? And again, like going into talking about the hurt we share, right? I didn't start with a script. I started with, okay, I have $12,000 in my pocket right now,
Okay.
right? If I have $12,000, what can I do with this to make a movie? Cool. I need to write a script. If I'm looking on the internet and everybody's saying, "Yo, on average, you're kind of a piece of shit if you pay people less than $100 a day," word, I don't want to be a piece of shit. I'm gonna pay people $100 a day. Right. So like trying to figure out those mathematics as they go. Now on the Hurt We Share, thankfully everybody on the team was really close and we were friends. So like people really didn't get paid, right? But we were able to bring everything together and that money just went into making everything work, right? Because again, first film, I've never done this before, right? But just the fact that I started with this concept, like we're going to make a movie that's going to fit into this budget, right? Now start writing your script. If I tell you, hey, if you can manage to write me a dope-ass Sherlock Holmes film, I'll give you $50,000 to make it.
And it has to be with the actor from Blood Diamond who's been complaining about it.
Yeah, and it has to be with that actor who's been complaining, with Digimon, right? So you will much more likely figure out a way to write an amazing Sherlock Holmes script. If I just walked up to you and said, "Yo, I want a Sherlock script," and I didn't give you a budget, you're going to come back with a script that's going to cost me $40 million. It's going to have airplanes. It's going to have boats. It's going to have crypts and pyramids. We don't got that money.
Exactly.
So now we got to go through your creative process. I got to have this whole back and forth argument where I look like the bad guy as the business person trying to cut stuff from your creative. Like, yes, I've been there as the creative, having the creative feeling. So I get both sides of it, right? That is not a conducive way to do business. Instead, go right from the beginning. This is what we're doing. This is the product we want to create. This is the space we're working with. This is the profit margin we want to see. Are you the right person to write the script? If not, cool. We'll come back when we have more money for the script you want to write that takes more money, right? Like that's all it is. But there has to be a massive severance of the emotional attachment to the business of art, right? It's one thing to just be an artist. It's another to be in the business of art. And I think once people can separate those two, we'll be much happier as artists because now you can see the spaces where things are not the same. They don't have to be the same.
I agree with you on those 2 points. There should be a severance on the creative and the emotional and the business. However, we are now in our conversation getting into the chicken and egg theory, which should go first. I still maintain that you begin with the script, and that's something that you say, if this is a good script in the sense of you think it works well. You've not shopped it around for money, but shopped it around for feedback, because then that's something that's like, yeah, I like it. I think that can be made. I think that can sell. Now that you have a good script, now start working on your business plan in the sense of which films would be your comps, what would be similar to this, and essentially who would be potentially in it, what would be locations. It still starts with the script, because then if the script, let's say, is not set in stone, you've done the business model first, which these are just different approaches. Then it's something where, okay, if we're still working on the script during pre-production, production, okay, but if we're way into production, now it's going to cost us money. This script needs to be tight and
why are you in pre-production without a script?
Oh, Stanley Kubrick, R.I.P. The script would be changing even on the day of set. We had somebody
making script changes is different from not having a script.
I didn't say script would be locked. So you still have your script, but let's say you're still making changes. But for me, again, it should start with the script. That's my approach. As someone who is a filmmaker and an entrepreneur, I believe I'm able to sever that connection of the creative and emotional and business. But I still maintain, in my opinion, you start with the script. And that sets everything else in motion of you deciding, okay, who would be investors? Am I self-funding and things of that nature? So I do agree with you. There needs to be a severance, and for filmmakers, they need to go, okay, is this going to be a waste of my time? Is this going to be for my time? What will be my ROI? How is this? What's the journey going to be? But again, my process, what works for me, what I think is best for independent filmmakers, work backwards. Start with the script, and then go with your business model.
So if someone you have a bunch of scripts right now, right?
I only have one script I'm working on right now.
Okay, so what would you say the anticipated, just kind of off the top of your head, what do you think the cost of that script is right now?
Right now, based on a particular conversation with a banker, $75,000.
75,000. Okay, that's good, right? So if somebody in this is a tougher situation, right? Because the concern is, in your case, right, you've done this long enough where you understand the value of writing your script to the business, right? So even though you're saying you're starting with the script, you're starting with the business part of it because you already budget in your head and you have a better understanding of budgeting, right? The average person who's hearing start with your script doesn't understand budgeting in any way, right? So when you're saying starting with your script, they're hearing, okay, let me go write my script, and they're writing the action scene where somebody's motorcycle goes through a living room window.
But that's why I said earlier, an example is like, okay, as you're writing this, you need to have that in mind. Is this going to be something where it's one location and a few actors who could also be non-actors? Do it cheaply and see how that goes. There are other examples, Paranormal Activity.
But what I'm saying is, you see how each of those examples always start from business.
Yes. Yeah, like they could fall into that. Yeah.
Right. Like,
I agree.
So that's where the key factor.
You're right.
Yes. You have to think about, and if you're someone, again, like if you already have these experiences, or if you can counter these experiences with your own lived examples, like they make perfect sense. Do that, right? But for the general person listening, if you're trying to get started, like start thinking about what kind of money you have available to you first, and then go into your film. Like I've met people who have written amazing short films. Right? Yep. And I'm like, yo, this short film is so good, you're never going to get it funded. Because anybody who approaches the script is going to be like, well, why don't we make it a feature? Because we could make money off a feature with this.
Right.
And if you're someone who's stuck in the creative side of the process, you're like, I don't want to change my script. Like that becomes problematic.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, right? Exactly. I agree.
Again, from your own experience, right? Like, would you say we have more than 50% of the filmmakers that would be in that emotional state, or less, right? And I say strongly more, right? Like we have a significant amount of filmmakers that would have a difficult, right? So the example I was going to give with your script, because I made an unfair assumption, right, is as most filmmakers, like you ask 3 out of 10, or ask 10 scriptwriters, right, to tell you the next movie they want to make and what budget they'll need, they're going to say $1 million.
Okay, yeah. They're going to aim for the moon, but then you got to start high.
But then once you start trying to talk them down, it's like, again, do you think, right, and this is the part of business that I think is very important for creatives to understand, because we don't really grasp this well, because in general people don't.
We have to.
And we have to.
Yeah.
It's, you have to respect someone's time and energy, right? If someone has already made millions of dollars and you need them to make your first millions of dollars, you need to respect their time and energy, right? So in that, is those conversations around like, what do you know about what needs to be done to make your film come to life, right? Because when you sit down with these people, that's what you're telling them. You need to have these conversations, right? And so, as terrible as it sounds on a person level, because it's very big for us as creatives to be people, right? You're wasting somebody's time. Mm-hmm. Why does somebody who already has the money that you wish you had want to sit down and go back and forth with you about anything?
I agree 1,000%. And as someone who was one of the co-founders of Bronx Film 48, we used to do the 48-hour film competitions. Part of that was to educate filmmakers on working with necessary guardrails.
Right.
Because that is what ties. We talk about severing. Now what unifies creative and business is in your script, there needs to be certain guardrails. In your business plan, there needs to be certain guardrails. Because what is realistic is what realistic is. What can you actually make with a certain budget, come under budget, and can that make profit? Which will allow you to make your next one.
This is what's possible. Exactly. This is what's probable. I need artists to start living in what's possible, not probable.
I want to do all of these things. It's like, well, pick one, and that's the strength of your movie.
Right. I'm coaching a musician right now to help him boost his career a bit, and that was actually a heavy piece of the conversation yesterday, where it's like, yo, you have to really like sit down with yes, at any point, any one of us creatives right now, you could walk through a door, bump into somebody, spill coffee, and they could be the person who hands you $3 million to do whatever you feel like doing creatively. That is 100% probable. It is not realistically possible, right? So you can't build plans around probability, right? Which is the reactionary thing, right? You can't build a plan around saying, my script is so good, people are gonna love it and give me money, right? No, build your plan. And it's interesting because even the dynamic of how TV shows are accepted, right? Like you don't write a whole season of a TV show.
Pilot.
You just write the pilot, right? Which is literally telling you like they want to see how the business model of this whole film, like this whole TV series will work, right? We want to read the first script just to see if we'll care. Exactly. But I want to see the story Bible. Give me the season Bible. Give me the outline of the structure of how this show works. Give me who do you think the cast members could be. Like I've seen story Bibles, and when I asked the person for the script, they were like, "Oh, I haven't wrote the script yet. I'm waiting to get paid to write the script because there's no reason to write the pilot until it's going to get funded." I'm like, that sounds crazy. But then they show you examples, and you're like, "Oh, you're not crazy. Like these things work. Like why are people stuck in these other ways that they tell you are for certain, but you can't give me as many concrete successful examples as the ones that are uncertain?"
That's a good point you're making. There's a screenwriter, I think 2-3 months ago, Max, I believe, his film was picked up in Hollywood and sold for like a few $1 million. That's a rarity.
Right.
So it's, Max, is this camera rolling? Okay, I don't see it on the HDMI. Maybe the cable.
Uh-oh.
So let's pause for a second.
You're watching Uptown Films, so keep watching Films Uptown.
Hey there, I'm Nicole Tay, and you're watching Uptown Films.
Hi, my name is Sean Senavrotny, and you are listening to the Uptown Films podcast.
Hi, this is Alvaro Franco, and keep making films Uptown, and please keep showing Uptown some love.
Hi, my name is Zayn Lindsay, and you're watching Uptown Films.
Hey, this is Christopher Hall. Thanks so much for listening to the Uptown Films podcast.
I didn't know you had commercials and shit, bro. That's dope.
I might do a commercial. I'll be like, Montañez, Montaña, Montañez. So narrative filmmaking to documentary filmmaking. We're just talking about it during the break. You're now working on your first documentary after 9 features. So you spent one multiverse the narrative. Now you're entering the nonfiction.
Yeah, now I'm going into the nonfiction space. I have a really bad. Speaking of ego, like Max and I were talking about earlier, my ego problem is I have a really big issue with being told you can't do something.
You can't do it.
Like not just me, but like if I hear people like saying something can't be done, once my brain starts rationalizing and the idea of like, yo, we're all people comes to like we all have the same exact like physical limitations and capabilities unless you have a clear, distinguished like disability. So why can't we do these things, right? So I've started dabbling in the idea of documentary. There's a couple of them that I want to do. 2 specific ones. One is dealing with rage, right? Like dealing with, because I feel like, at least from my own personal experiences, anger management is a little bit different than like burst of rage, right? Like I've met people who have a hard time handling anger, and I've met people who have a very hard time handling burst of rage, right? Where they're just like, even you would even say like they're on the bipolar spectrum or something, right? Where like they were perfectly fine a second ago, and now the explosion is astronomical, and then they're perfectly fine again, right? And I'm an example of one of those people, right? Like a lot of my childhood was like that. A lot of my early teens was like that. So I've kind of wanted to explore that, right? Like find other people who have dealt with these rage things that they can't really explain or control. Because when I've looked into like anger management and when I've talked to people about anger management, there's always a very, not necessarily a source, but like it's kind of like a outline thing, right? And you start to really figure out like what are these things. But for the people I've met that deal with rage, like there's no commonality, bro. It'll be like one day they love birds, the next day all birds got to die.
Yeah.
Like what happened? Like, you know what I mean? So that's one of them.
Angry birds.
Right, angry birds. So that's one of them. And then the other concept, which is much more likely to come to fruition first, is working with, as people who have been following my career know, good friend Javi Torres, UFC coach and former middleweight. He recently got into a crazy, like wild accident. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Arizona, but they have like, because it's a mountain state, they have like layered highways.
Oh,
so sometimes you're above the cars and sometimes. So in this case, a car literally like flew off of the top layer and rammed right into the front of his car. Everybody in the other car died. Javi walked out the car, was sending me pictures while there.
That's
he literally was like,
crazy.
yo, I have the text message, bro. It literally says,
crazy.
What's up, dude? And then the next line is a picture and a video clip and then a bundle of photos. I'm like, bro. And then in one of them, you see the ambulances as they're arriving. I'm like, dude, like, are you okay? Did you even check yourself? Like,
no, like just like scratches, no
right,
concussion.
nothing, bro. No damage at all. There's
What
like
car was he driving?
There's I forgot if it's a Ford or Chevy, but it's a pickup truck. Like, I've been in the truck, bro. Like,
So like he's driving, and then like I'm visually doing this. Like
you're just cruising, and then a car just lands in your hood, bro. Like wild, right? And then what
When
made
was
it even?
this?
This was like a week after or before Christmas. Like it was literally just happened. So then he hits me up a couple days later. He's doing like news and press because all the news reporters want to talk to him, and he shows me a clip of some other guy that was there that they interviewed. And the dude's like, bro, it was like watching an X-Men, bro. Like, he literally, he got out of the car.
I should be reacting that way. That's fucking R.I.P. to that family. That
Yo, it was crazy. He was like, he got out of the car, like nothing happened to him, kicked the door open, jumped out, looked around, then ran over to the other car. And then I just saw him get sad and I knew things were bad. And I was like, bro, you just described a car accident. Like, that's not how that works.
Marvel style.
But because he has so many other crazy stories in his journey of life, I was just like, bro, like, let's do a documentary. I've been wanting to do this for a while. And as Max very vividly pointed out, I haven't done a documentary yet. So as much as I'm saying we're going to do a documentary, there is still a possibility it just becomes a biopic.
Yeah, 2025 is still young. Like, let's go.
2025 is still young. We have plenty of time, and anything is possible. So we'll see.
So you got to have budget for this movie to recapitulate that.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least get some
or we just
drone
use the
shots.
real footage.
Oh yeah, archival.
I got the day
I'm
one
sorry.
footage, bro. I got the first 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. That's tough.
Such a wild experience. So yeah, that's I'm thinking about dabbling in documentary. But you're like the documentary pro, bro. So you know what I'm saying? Like,
hey, it's funny with the documentary. That's where I would deviate a little more in the sense of first, let's write kind of like a pitch deck. And then we'll put together like a sample treatment. Like, okay, here's what we're thinking.
So backwards. I started working on a documentary script. That's where I started it.
Oh, you see? So you invert it. We invert for narrative and documentary.
I was like, you got to know what you want to talk about,
but
right?
this is
Or
the
people not going to want to
documentary.
fund it.
You can write. A lot of people need to know this. You can write a documentary script, even though it's like, well, I'm going to interview this member, I'm going to follow this person. But then a lot of the other stuff, like, oh, we theoretically know what we're going to cover, but you'll find that out in production. That's what I've learned. Okay. And then you really make the film in post. Versus narrative, it's like, okay, here's exactly what we're doing.
Right. Here's exactly what I'm doing.
I'm going to make this. Here's the plan. Documentary, it's like, shoot, what did Mike Tyson say? Like, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's what documentary is. And it's like, we're going to find out if this works.
We're going to find out. Okay. See, now I feel a little bit better because I was like, damn, I don't know if I could pull this off, man. Documentaries feel just like, it doesn't feel like there's anything to grab. It's like when people ask me to do like behind the scenes footage, I'm like, I don't do that. Not because I'm above it. I'm not above it. I don't feel like I'm just not good at it. Like that's all. Like I can't just go into a room and be like random stuff put together in greatness. Like I'm not that guy. Like,
I don't know. I was asking a couple of our guys here if they could do BTS, but I see somebody with a camera not turned on, and somebody else with a
as you can see, BTS is hard, bro.
BTS is hard.
It's a trained skill, bro. It's a earned skill. You know when you play a video game, you got the skill trees. That shit that's one of the like special ones with like a lock on it. You gotta do special tasks to get good at it. Like
now going into video games, we're covering everything in this podcast.
I love video games. I don't know if that's known by this team, but like I'm always talking about video games. I love video games. There's a video game reference in every movie I've made. Every single one I've made.
Well, what's the most recent?
Burden of Nine Lives has a Tekken reference. In the opening scene, the guy not the opening scene. There's a scene in the film where the tech guy is playing a video game. You see him playing with the P5, and you hear the background noise. It's Tekken.
That's dope. Yeah. I like that. Also, like video games, the most recent years, I would say since like maybe the last 15 years, they've become movies. Like not just the graphics, but just like the opening sequences. And it's like, wow, I'm watching Red Dead Redemption 2 or playing God of War 4. It's like.
They are movies. Nico, I wrote that one, but I was producing it alongside director Cosmo. So like we had some conversations around some stuff. So in that, there's like a post-death hallway scene. If you've ever played the game Metal Gear Solid, like the bodies are aligned the same way. Like I literally was looking at the screen and like, all right, you lay here. You lay here.
Doing the Easter eggs. I wanted to ask you, what is your connection with New York? You're from Providence, Rhode Island. What brought you here to New York?
So the connection story goes the other way around. I was born in Manhattan, and I left New York when I was 8 or 9. But because of the time I spent in Providence and the life I lived out there, that's what I claim home, right? So like as far as historically, like any accreditation, like when we talk about awards or accolades coming back, like that's the place that I want to bring them to build that culture of opportunity out there. Because as some of you guys who have been to Providence will tell you, like it's a great place to be when you retire or if you're in college and you have like freedom, you know what I'm saying? But if you're trying to build a life out there, it is one of the hardest places to be.
Too expensive?
No, it's not that it's expensive. There's not a lot of opportunity. Like there's not a lot of work opportunity in any industry. If you're not in medicine or education, there's not really a lot of work opportunity out there. Like Johnson & Wales is one of the greatest schools for culinary arts. And we have a great like restaurant industry out there. Yep. Most of the people who graduate from Johnson & Wales don't stay in Rhode Island.
Right. That's where you build up and go.
Right, they just get up and go. And I think it's also because we're so smack dab in the middle of some other great places, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of Boston. I hate going to Boston. Every time I go there, they crash into my car, so it's really annoying. Like every single time, bro, it's terrible. But like, if you're in Providence, like Boston's a bigger city, so you would go to Boston, right? Stamford, Connecticut, bigger city, so you go to Connecticut. New York, only 3 hours away, so you go to New York. New Hampshire, way better lifestyle, so you go to New Hampshire. Right? Like Rhode Island doesn't have its own conducive, like just value to being there, which is why there's a lot of vacation homes. Shit, we got Taylor Swift now, bro.
So are you,
which means we'll get Patrick Mahomes because she makes the money.
Are you a Swiftie? Are you a Swiftie?
Nah, one of my favorite photographers from Providence is though. Shout out Dionisio. He loves Taylor Swift.
I want last question. The
Big Don.
Last question. Last year we lost half of our movie theaters. So basically we had
That's actually what I wanted to ask you.
What's your reaction to the Bronx now only having one movie theater? Because we lost the Concourse Multiplex May of 2024.
So one thing that I've learned recently, right, and this will be a fun little bit for backstory for the people listening, right? So I grew up very underprivileged, right? So like very low income, and I didn't realize that because my mom was good at making it seem like we didn't. So it was cool, and I didn't realize it until I got older and started looking back on life and was reflecting and like meeting other people. You're like, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff in life I didn't actually do very much, right? So going to the movies is one of those. and I didn't realize it until later in life when I started making movies. Like, I am not I love movies. I think they're really fun. I enjoy them, right? But I've always been a TV person because me and my mom would just watch TV shows because that's what we had. Right?
Telenovelas.
Right, novelas, Law and Order, like all like those. So I'm really into cop procedurals, like thriller suspenses. Like that's where I get a lot of that from. So my writing has always been kind of suspensey because of that episodic concept, right? So I'm writing a feature with some episodic elements. So like every scene feels like a TV episode. That's why it just kind of continues pushing forward. But when it comes to movies, I think I'm in a position like many others to value movie theaters so much more than others, especially now when I look back on it, I'm like, I get it now, right? Like I didn't watch a lot of movies growing up because we didn't go to the movie theater, right? Like watching a movie in your house, even back in the day when we didn't have so much technology slowing us down, it wasn't the experience, right? Like anything could distract you, your dog, your kitchen, like anything. When I'm in the movie theaters, there's no distractions. You really get to it. Like the movies I've watched at home, I don't remember as well as the movies I watched in theater. Yeah. And it's because the closed environment for it.
The immersion of the movie theater.
So I think we need movie theaters back. The problem is, again, unfortunately, as much as of a creative as I am, I do fully subscribe to the business side too. And it's hard to understand or create a business model around movie theaters that isn't experience driven.
Yep, I agree. That's how I grew up watching movies at home with my parents. I did have that movie theater a few blocks from where neighborhood theater where I grew up, and it did hurt.
Yeah, and probably only had like 2 movie theaters, by the way. Providence only has like 1 or 2 movie theaters.
So we're in the same
as
boat.
A whole, like as a whole. Like, yeah, but again, our population is like a fraction of New York, so it's not the same. Like you could fit Rhode Island and the Bronx like 50 times.
It was like 1.5 million people in this borough.
Huh?
You have a lot of Rhode Island theaters. Like Providence itself, there are only 2.
Yeah. Yeah, every city has at least 1 theater, that's for sure. So, but again, like the whole of Rhode Island is like 1 borough. So
Smallest state in the U.S. People.
Smallest state. But I wanted to ask you, right?
Yep,
because
sure.
one of the big things, because I've actually, right, and I guess this goes out to every single person in the Bronx who's listening and is part of a community organization. We got to huddle together more, right? Because before I went to your meeting, I didn't realize that I was outside having the same conversations you were, right? And then since that meeting, we haven't really connected, so we're both still outside having the same conversations, right? Versus trying to figure out how to coordinate and bring everything together. The biggest thing that I've been proposed to by the amazing team at Kevin O'Reilly's office, right, is they love the idea and they want to support films, right? They want to support it, but how can we present a realistic structure that makes it so that the theaters are not a dying business, right? Because the way they present it, and it makes sense after having the extended dialogue with them, it's like, if the movie theater industry is pulling away from theaters, right? What does that say about like the entirety of this industry being incapable of figuring out a way to keep any type of profit margin to keep theaters open, right? Because we're not talking about theaters closing because they're just closing them and they want to save money. Like most of the theaters closing are not operating at a profit margin, right? And they're not asking for massive profits either like they were in the 90s. They just want to get a little more than break even. So if they're not meeting that threshold, how do we support them?
There's 2 answers and straightforward. You have to look at the models that are in existence and are doing well, nonprofit models. So Jacob Burns Film Center, Cinema Arts Center in Long Island. You have to have a model where it's entertainment and education, or edutainment, some people like to coin that term. So it has to be something where not only am I getting the experience of watching a movie, but then I can also gain something else. And in other theaters, of course, they have their concession stands and cafes and arcades. Those are fine too, but we have to look at the models that are, 1, doing well, and 2, providing something beyond the monetary value. So opening up their space as a third space. So things where there are community nights and things outside of just watching cinema. So that way the community's like, oh my God, I get a lot out of going there. And I can go there sometimes without having to spend money. And then that's something where you're providing not only greater value, but greater retainment and consistency. So that's one particular model, for at least for the nonprofit. Not just the nonprofits can also make money, but not the for-profit. For the for-profit model, unfortunately, this is something where we can go back in time and look at any other industry where it has to go through ups and downs and changes. When the age of the internet, the age of streaming, which streaming platform is actually making money? I think you point to Netflix and maybe one other. So if the streamers aren't making money and the theaters aren't making money, what's that saying about us? People, that popular SNL skit with Pete Davidson, they even did a 10-10 Win News segment on it last year. A short-ass movie, a 90-minute movie. Don't give me the 2-hour movie. And then that same skit, they're like, but King of Staten Island is 2 hours and 17 minutes. And he's like, oh, we need it every minute. People's attention spans are having some issues here. Certain legacy and reduxes and revisits and reboots and sequels and new franchises, multiverses. We're seeing a saturation of the same product, and also people are, one, distracted, and it's affecting their attention spans. And people, unfortunately, in this country, their cost of living expenses are not keeping up with their pay. So that's another model where it's like, it used to be, let's go to the picture show, let's go see some movies. Like in the 90s when the economy was good. Now it's like, I don't know if I want to spend as much money. I'll go on that $5 Wednesday or that $7 Tuesday, but I'm not going to pay $14, $16, $18 anymore when I can just watch that at home or wait for it to be available, or I can pirate it. So unfortunately, I say all that to say, for the for-profit model, I don't have an answer. For the nonprofit model, which is what I'm looking to do, is if we create a cinema center and community space in one, then it provides more value, and it is thus potentially more sustainable based on the existing models of like the Jacob Burns Film Center and Cinema Arts Center, Jacob Burns Upstate, Cinema Arts Center on Long Island, that have been around for 20 plus years. That's the best I can do. So I will take my pitch deck to all of the city council members in March. I called the borough president on a Monday when she does her, call in on News 12, and I asked her, hey, what are you doing to, how do you feel about, one, us only having one movie theater, and two, what are you doing to collaborate with other elected officials and CBOs and NGOs to see how we can solve this together? Because I don't have all the answers, but let's work together to see how we can do it. I can present a pitch deck. I can present an annual report, what we've done the last 2 years, and our numbers, and our impact, how many people, demographics, what we've done. And let's see if a single-screen cinema center in the Bronx that's accessible, not all the way up in Bay Plaza, but more in the Fordham area, can work. So that's the best I can say.
Do you have any concerns that the business models you're pointing to are their starting point is antiquated and doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah, for many of them, I would say yes.
Yeah, so like how do you adjust the business model to match the current times, right? Because like at the beginning, 20 years ago when Lincoln Film Center started, right, they didn't have a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, right? Like you weren't able to watch a movie on your phone. Right? Like what do I go to a community center for if I'm not someone who's actively interested in filmmaking to watch a film? Right?
Perfect question. You have to get into workforce development. We have to have a center which not only, and I'll unpack it this way, we need to get into workforce development so people are working in the industry. They don't have to be filmmakers. They can be film workers working in the industry. So that could be costume design, set design, grip, electric, camera, you name it, production assistant. A lot of these programs that happen in Manhattan and Brooklyn, they take people from the Bronx and northern Manhattan to those boroughs. If we establish something here in the Bronx that taps into state funding, federal funding, and some city funding, there's more competition there, then we can have it so that people are saying, okay, not only if I'm a filmmaker, that's a space where I can debut my film, I can do a test screening. My film premiered at the Bronx Independent Cinema Center. We can have festivals, we can bring tours, we can bring industry. So let's say other entities want to rent out our space. We can bring in distributors and people in the industry to come and let's say have demo days and their own events. Then we're bringing in industry and resources, which is important. But then we also tap into workforce development where we have cohorts of 18, 20 people at a given time and for several different programs, and people are being trained and upskilled and they're being developed. They have their network. And then they also have support, potentially bringing in unions, bringing in corporate interests, and working with our elected officials to make sure we're developing this workforce of people within this multi-billion-dollar industry. So
how does that impact or benefit the people who don't care about film? They just enjoy film. Right? Like you don't care about cars. You just enjoy the use of a car. Right? So like, are you going to go to a car center to engage in all of these workforce opportunities, like all this extra stuff. If just cars aren't your thing, you just understand you enjoy them when you need to.
Oh, easy.
Right.
This is the old example that I've used that my mentor and I've discussed. So, if let's say you're in a relationship or you're married, you and your partner, you guys eat in a lot, so you have dinner at home a lot. Every now and then, you're going to go out. You might go out to your local restaurant that you enjoy because you enjoy the food, you enjoy the ambience, you enjoy the service, you enjoy the people, you enjoy the conversation. You can still eat at home, but every now and then you go out to that restaurant.
But in that example, I have to eat. I don't have to watch a movie.
But you don't have to eat there. You don't have to watch a movie there. But
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you cater? How do we create a pathway or interest point for people who are not part of film, right? For people who are not going to care if we bring workforce development for a film industry in the Bronx, because they're still getting movies from China regardless of whether there's a film industry in the Bronx, right? They're not going to care about the community impact, right? They're not going to be excited about just a screening space, right? Like, they are only interested as bottom level interaction consumers, right? Like, they want to pay, watch the movie, go home, that's it.
Again,
how do you draw their attention to this type of space based on what you've described?
If I'm going to spend an enormous amount of my energy on a target demographic or an audience that says, I'm not already interested in that, that's might be a losing battle, because then I can point to the existing NGOs, Bronx River Arts Center, Bronx Documentary Center, BAT, the Bronx Academy Dance Center, Wetco with their now music space. People within 1.5 million people in this borough, there will be, in my view, based on 2 years, a significant amount of people that will say, I like that, and then an even greater amount of people saying, I'm not sure, let me see. So I will take those that say, I'm interested, and then I will also look at those that are saying, let's wait and see. And as time goes by, if it's, let's say, a 3-year lease or a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease, over time, I think we can win some of those people over. Because if you build it, and if the model is for the community first, because that's what NGOs are supposed to do, then over time, you'll start to win more people over. Where specifically when they see people within their own families and their own community saying, I went there, I liked it. Or, hey, I got a job there. Or, hey, I graduated from that workforce development program, and now I'm working, or I'm in this union. It changed my life because it's in my borough, it's near me, and it actually served my interest.
Yeah, I think everything you said applies to a standard workforce development, right? But the specialties that we develop in film are not easily translated to the standard workforce space, right? So like grip training program, for example, right? Like, a lot of what you learn in grip training doesn't apply to accounting or a medical office,
of course not.
Or janitorial.
But there's
right?
different unions for those.
Right. But you're still perpetuating this idea of existing in the film industry, which is already a volatile industry, right? So I can understand the pushback to supporting this from a governmental standpoint, because why put in $100,000 in workforce development for a volatile industry when we can put $100,000 in workforce development into construction labor, and that's more guaranteed. Right?
Then that's the thing, though. Then we're going to say that everybody in the borough is only going to go into certain industries. This volatile industry, this whole medium, this whole saying of survive till 25. Let's see how this year pans out, because I do agree it is volatile. However, just because we're training you to become a grip, that doesn't mean that's the only thing you would be. In workforce development, there needs to be experiential learning opportunities, and there needs to be a development on the person themselves, showing up on time, soft skills, resume building, interviewing skills, networking, so utilizing LinkedIn, utilizing different job boards, connecting them with folks in the union so they understand how to get on an over-hire list, and then eventually, okay, you network with the people in the union who have been teaching for 20 plus years. So you know the ins and outs, and you're building camaraderie with the people in your cohort, and then you're building a network with the professionals. So it's setting you up to be stronger. There's grants with the state, Empire State Development, a work readiness grant, where it's between $25,000 and $500,000. So that's something where we could pump money into making sure people in the Bronx are able to find success in the industry, even though that is volatile, and then also find success in the sense of they are more of a professional. because then if you take those skills, you can ultimately decide. Not everyone's going to join the union. Not everyone's going to say, I want to be a key grip. But maybe, just maybe, or an accountant or a camera or what have you, because there's multiple different programs. But maybe after that program is done, I would say strongly, you are now more of a professional. When you can take those skills, that network, that experience that you've garnered, and move it into something that you do want to do, and it'll set you up for a better chance of success. That's what I'd say.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna save the rest of the questions for off camera. I don't want nobody steal the sauce. You know
No,
what I'm saying?
yeah. There you go. Thank you so much, man. Great
My
conversation.
pleasure, brother. My pleasure.